Good afternoon, students. My name is Sanmarie Steenkamp and I'll be doing the examination-based presentation for 2019 for the Diploma in Education Secondary for Life Skills 2. Right. Before we start, I'm just going to mention a few things regarding your assignments, which is very important. When you do your assignments, make sure that you avoid the following mistakes, which most students do. They tend to take the material or the answers right out of their study guides and copy it and paste it into the answer for the assignment. This will cause you to be penalized. You will lose marks if you do this. Please use your own words and make sure that it makes sense and that the tutor can understand what you are saying. Also, please avoid answering all of your questions with bullet points. Students tend to just use bullet points, giving you half sentences and not following what the question is asking. So do make sure that you understand what the question is asking. In other words, the verbs that are used. All right. Also make sure that you have your contents page as well as your references page at the end. And please make sure that every single page has a number on it. All right, so we're going to look at the outline. Unit 1 looks at examine the content about and teaching of family life aspects. Unit 2, analyze the content about and teaching of financial orientated issues. Number 3, examine the content about and teaching of self-awareness and emotional intelligence elements. Unit 4, explore the content about and teaching of relationships. And lastly, Unit 5, analyze the content about and teaching of democratic citizenship. Okay, so let's continue to Unit 1. And we look at the social influences on gender roles. And just before we continue, please note that not everything is in the slideshow. So you do have to read through your study guide to make sure that you cover all the materials. This is due to time constraints and also to the space that we have available to use. So social influences on gender roles would include the values of a society, norms of a society, traditions, morals, attitudes, and beliefs of a society. All of these things influences on the gender roles that we play. The different gender roles that we have in the family, and I like this quote, so I'm going to read it. A gender role is a set of societal norms dictating the types of behaviors which are generally considered acceptable, appropriate, and desirable for people based on their actual or perceived sex or sexuality. In other words, if you are a woman, then there are certain expectations and behaviors that you will get from society that will be found acceptable and appropriate for you. We all have a role to play in our families. Some people are the mothers, some are fathers, boys are sons, and girls are daughters. In the extended families, there may be grandmothers and grandfathers, aunts and uncles, cousins and nieces and nephews. So all of these gives us roles that we have to play in our society and family, depending on whether we are male or female, and the role that we play in our family, depending on whether we are male and female. Traditionally, the females are the nurturers in the family and seen as mothering, cleaning, cooking, preparing, and looking after others. Males tend to be the more dominant and stronger role players and seen as the money makers, protecting their families and going out to work to provide for the family. So the origin of gender roles can be seen as far back as the beginning of the first form of social life. Men went out to hunt, while women stay behind to gather. Men were the food suppliers and physically fit, whereas females were homemakers and cooks. These gender roles were needed in order for basic societies to survive. So these roles in the family are typically defined by the social and cultural norms of the society that we live in. These roles help a family to fulfill their responsibilities, and any changes in these roles can affect the family and its functioning. Right, we move now on to certain ways to be assertive, which can also be used in the family dynamic to avoid blame and disrespect. So here are some guidelines. Communicate your point of view to the family while still respecting those around you. You are open to express your thoughts, feelings, and desires, and encourage the other family members to also do the same. You listen to the opinions of others as well as the advice that they might give. Take what you need to take and leave behind what you feel is not helpful to you. If you do not like your family member's advice, reject it gently using positive words. Admit your mistakes when you are wrong and say sorry when you are wrong. Okay, so we're still on families, and here we have a picture about the different types of family that one gets. So there's the single parent family, the blended family, the extended family, adopted family, sibling family, and nuclear family. Also make sure that you do understand what each of these families are. So in other words, should you be asked what is an extended family or what is blended family, make sure that you know exactly what that is. Right, we're going to look at activities that family members can do together to bond. In other words, to come closer to each other, to understand each other better. So here are simple exercises, a few of them that one can do together as a family to bring you all closer together. Eat at least one meal together a day, travel, create something, so some craft activity would be a wonderful idea. Some TV time, although that tend to not always bring families together. Tell stories, can do gardening or bird watching. These are just some examples. The advantages and disadvantages of having a small family is that each child receives, this is an advantage, can receive enough attention from parents. Each child gets more love from parents. Financial costs are less, more educational and supporting opportunities for the children, less chance of conflict and rivalry. Parents have a better quality of life, there's less strain on the mothers, less health risk, and high levels of education due to more money being available for the parents and children. Some of the disadvantages of having a small family is that parents can become overprotective and overly attentive, so they might give too much attention to their children. Children can become attached to their parents and they're often not well-rounded. They can become very selfish and they do not learn responsibility well. They may also feel lonely and they also tend to have higher egos. Okay, we move on to corporal punishment. So this can be in the school with teachers or at home with parents. So corporal punishment, what is that? It's when the following action takes place against a child, when they are either hit or squeezed or dragged, slapped or spanked. It does not achieve much results that are positive and can cause both serious psychological and physical harm. It is often used as a weapon of power and can easily be abused. What we also need to realize is that corporal punishment within Namibia is illegal and is seen as a crime. All right. We move on to Unit 2, and here we're going to look at the implications of the growing unemployment in Namibia. And it seems to be going up every year. Some of the implications include feeling lost, angry, listless, and depressed. It leads to a sense of failure, low self-esteem, and desperation to provide for families and basic survival. So there are different types of unemployment. You get frictional unemployment, structural unemployment, cyclical, technological, classical or real wage, and seasonal unemployment. Also make sure that you do understand what each of those types of unemployment is. Main motives of people on earth is supposed to be the following. So these are some of the things that is mentioned in your study guide. Is to realize one's potential and ideals, to achieve biological perfection, seek wisdom and knowledge, to do good and to do the right things, meanings relating to religion, to love, to feel, to enjoy the act of living, and to have power to be better. Right, so this is just some of the main motives, and a good exercise for you would be to go and look at what is your main motives on earth, and if it's in line with these. The implications of growing unemployment. Oh, sorry, it just falls under the previous slide. I think I swapped them around, sorry. So the threats that are occurring in Namibia due to the high unemployment rate is the increase in crime rate, and we've definitely seen that over the past year. Increase in HIV and AIDS, youth-related crime increases, housebreaking, robberies, car theft, stock theft, money laundering, increase in teenage pregnancies. We've also seen that lately in the news, an increase in sex workers, and a general theft for survival. So everything just goes south when the unemployment rate goes up. Okay, moving on to Unit 3, we're quickly going to look at the human needs model of Maslow. And by this time you should be quite familiar with that, as it is in the previous life skills modules as well. So it's a 5-tier model depicting the human needs of every single person on earth. And Maslow wanted to try and understand what it is that people need, what motivates them to learn, what motivates them to continue with life. And he saw that if the physiological needs of a person is met, so in other words, they have food, water, warmth, or rest, if their security needs are met, security and safety, those are the basic needs, then it's easier for them to feel like they belong, and easier for them to be able to build relationships. With that, also their self-esteem grows and a feeling of accomplishment. So those two are the psychological needs. On the top, we have the self-actualization, which is achieving one's full potential, including your creative activities. So those are the self-fulfillment needs, and also the last one in this tier. We move on to business and how to start a business. So there are 9 steps to start a business. And again, refer back to your study guide and read each step and everything that's underneath each step, so you do understand how these steps fit into each other and how they follow each other. In other words, you need step 1 to get to step 2, and step 2 to step 3. You cannot jump from step 1 to step 5 to step 8. Okay, so they need to be in order. So first you write a business plan, then you get advice and training. Choose a location where you want to set up your business. Make sure that your finances is in place. Get the legal structures for your business and decide on a business name, and also register your business name. Register for tax, get your licenses in place, and then look at your employer responsibilities. So those are the main 9 steps on how to start your business. Move on to the key components of happiness in life. And there are several key components in finding happiness in life and staying happy. So the first one we have is simplicity. In other words, simplify, simplify. Simplify, you keep things simple in life. Live with your heart. Our minds or brains tend to be very critical and analyze everything, and we forget we also have feelings. And sometimes we have to live with our hearts. Control our thoughts, as they can easily take over. This one is linked to live with your heart. Being grateful is one of the most important things to keep a person happy. is to realize every day what you can appreciate and what you are grateful for. Exercise. Don't forget that you do have a body. You not only have a mind and a heart, your body also needs to exercise to stay healthy and happy. To serve others, share experiences, and go the extra mile. Okay, so we also need to be here for each other. In this way, we will all be very happy in life. Coping mechanisms for different emotions, especially anger, loneliness, jealousy, fear, and joy. So we will look at few of them, not all of them. We'll look at anger and the coping mechanisms for anger. Uncontrolled emotions can easily take a toll on the body of a person's health. There are some vital tips a person can follow to ensure that they are coping with anger. You need to think before you speak. This might be easier said than done. When a person is really angry, they might not be able to think at that time. Only express anger from a place of calm. Again, you first need to calm down before you can express that anger. And exercise. Exercise has been shown to be one of the greatest methods of coping with anger, especially for men. Coping mechanisms for loneliness. So how can a person cope with loneliness? So number one, look after yourself. To join classes, that can be any type of classes or group, and also to volunteer. Alright, coping mechanisms for fear. A person does not need to live in fear of life, situations and things. There's also ways to cope with that. Important is to take some time out, to breathe, and to face the fear. So this might be a process. It's not something that will happen in one day, especially when it comes to strong emotions like fear, and also referring back to anger. These are not things that will happen overnight. You need to work on it constantly. Okay, how to praise and encourage, to build up people rather than criticize them. So the way that a person can build another person using positive skills like encouragement and praise would include things like respect the people in your circle. Respect is not always just a word. We really have to look at what that means. Respect can cover all of the things that follow. So being wise with what you say and be positive. So you also have to think of what you are saying and what would the consequences be of the things that you are saying. Be encouraging, forgiving, understanding, not gossip and slander, and share the knowledge that you have, and stay humble. Many times people for some reason do not want to share their knowledge. It's not going to help anyone if you keep the knowledge to yourself. We can only grow together if we share what we have. Okay, we can move on, and this comes links in with what we just talked about, the 7 essential virtues necessary for moral intelligence. So this is Borba's essential virtues and then a description of them. In your study guides, you can go through that in detail. I'm just going to name the virtues. Okay, so we talk about empathy, conscience, self-control, respect, kindness, tolerance, and fairness. How do we motivate life skills learners and teach them the importance of the subject? Life skills are strategies, techniques, and approaches all people use to survive and thrive in their everyday life. Some of the people acquire these skills without even thinking about it, and some people really need to learn them. We learn these life skills from our parents, from our teachers, from our peers. So in some ways it might be easier, and in some ways it might be more difficult. But it is essential strategies we all need to survive. We move on to Unit 4, and we're going to look a little bit at dating. So some of the hints for dating that you can teach to your learners. is that you need to be considerate towards each other, understanding of each other's needs. Insensitive people find it hard to connect emotionally with others. There should be trust. If you're constantly nagging or paranoid that your partner is maybe seeing somebody else, it means that you do not trust each other. There should be times where you can support each other emotionally, and for the relationship to work, you should be able to honestly express your feelings. If you feel that you need to hide some of your feelings, feelings that you have from your partner, then there a serious question mark or red flag is coming up, which flows into the different languages of love. Gary Chapman put together the 5 languages of love, and it was a way to achieve emotional intimacy. Because there are many ways that people can show love to each other, not just by saying, I love you. So in his book, he explains very clearly how people show love to each other, and then we also need to recognize this and not always expect love to come to us in the way that we think it should. So the first one is words of affirmation, quality time, number 2, receiving gifts, number 3, acts of service, 4, and 5, physical touch. So each of us tend to do one of these things more than the others. So you will probably recognize the way that you give love, and also look at your partner. Which way does he or she tend to give you love or show their love? We move on to friends. So this is all about relationships, advantages and disadvantages of having friends. So advantages is to help us to get to know ourselves. They build self-esteem, they're a support system for us, and they say things normally as it is. Some disadvantages of friends. Friends can fight when they do not see eye to eye. They can turn against you, leave you out, and also betray you. Importance of selecting decent friends rather than popular ones. So for many teenagers, this is a struggle because everybody wants to be popular, and many times they rather go for the popular friends than those who would just simply be good friends. So they have to look at things like quality versus popularity, sharing and caring, social following, acquaintances, care, honesty, and motivation. We look at the emotional needs. So this is the characteristics of men and women with regards to their emotional needs and communication styles. So these 2 things, emotional needs and communication styles, we look at the differences in characteristics of men and women. So I'm not going to go through all of them. Men need to feel needed. Women like to feel cared for and wanted. Men need to feel that they have meaning and purpose, where women feel like they are needed and that they have a role to play. Men need to feel they can be counted on, and women like to be able to rely on men. Men need quiet time, and women like to chat and converse and share their news all the time. Men draw close and pull away and then draw close again, where women rather need touch, intimacy, and care to tell them that they are loved. Men feel loved through sex and satisfying their wife. Okay. Communication style. Men tend to not talk a lot, where women love to talk. Men do not need to say much, where women need to say everything and they need to clarify everything. Men prioritize what needs to be said, and women will give the whole story and all the factors involved. So women would tend to be more emotional when they tell their stories, and men are more down to the point and finding a solution. Women will explore all kinds of different options, and men like to be quiet when they are feeling down, and women would rather talk about all of their issues. All right. The importance of forgiveness of a relationship partner. And this is very important to remember, so I'm going to read through this whole quote. Scientists who study forgiveness have long agreed that it is one of the most important contributors to a healthy relationship. Studies have shown that couples who practice forgiveness are more likely to enjoy longer, more satisfying relationships. Research has even shown that people who practice unconditional forgiveness are more likely to enjoy longer lives. So you can see how important it is to forgive somebody, not only your partner, but forgiveness in general. Because holding on to grudges, holding on to hurts can seriously have an impact on your health, psychologically and physically, and I'm sure even spiritually. So forgiving and letting go is the best thing that you can do for yourself. All right, Unit 5, we're going to look at the pillar features of a true democracy. So we are at democratic citizenship right now. So the pillars are the following. I'm also not going to read through everything, so I'm just going to name the pillar features. So we have social equality, majority rule, minority rights, freedom, and integrity. The characteristics of a responsible democratic citizen include some of the following. So this is not everything, but it's some of them. They are able to help people resolve conflict in their own family and community. They have integrity, they can be trusted, they can be depended upon, and they live a healthy lifestyle. They have an awareness of social and environmental issues. I want to challenge you as an adult. Are you a responsible democratic citizen? If you had a checklist and you have to tick off, how many of these would you be able to tick off? Okay, we're moving on back to adolescents, teenagers, and having house parties. So we have some information here, we have some guidelines here about house parties, which is normally seen as a negative and wrong thing to do, but it's not all bad news. It can teach teenagers some vital skills that can be used later in life, such as social skills, developing independence and confidence, and allows for making new friends and also planning skills. So when you are throwing a house party, keep the following in mind. Let the neighbors know. Make the entrance to the party by invite only, so not open to everybody. Do not advertise it all over social media, then you'll have chaos and a disaster. Be clear about the starting and finishing times, especially the finishing times, and also state that the party is an alcohol-free party. Ensure that all the valuables in the house is locked away and have access to your phone during the event. Okay, we're moving back to the disadvantages of a democracy. It can allow for public funds and time to be misused. We have corruption, wrong choices are risky business, and the right not to vote. Okay, we're looking at, lastly, the sustainable natural resources are as follows. So again, back to your study guide. Make sure that you read this part in the study guide very well and that you are familiar with all the information on sustainable natural resources, which include water, sun and wind energy, air, climate, and land.